Thank you all for coming out today. Before we begin, I think that kudos are necessary. So for those of you who don't know me, as superintendent of schools, one of my greatest honors is being able to shout out the goodness that I see in people. And earlier today, Mr. Regan came to our shared decision-making team for the school district, and he presented this evidence of work. And so although I would love to see 1 million more people in this audience, my shared decision-making members will tell you that they have been put hard to work. Is that accurate? So Mr. Regan has already presented this to the representatives of our PTOs and our buildings. And those folks, including our students, we have student reps on that team, and those folks have been charged with going out, sharing that data and information, taking a look at the goals associated with this community-wide program, and there to bring back creative ideas just as we're going to do today. So know that there are about 1,000 additional voices that will be heard. And so that's really great news. At that session, Mr. Regan took a moment to recognize Ms. Dana Taylor. And at the beginning of the meeting, he spent a heavy load of the work, really appreciating how she has made this program happen. And so I wanted to share that as superintendent, it was really nice to be a part of that shared decision-making committee and to hear Mr. Regan honor her. And I also want to say that, Mr. Regan, I would like to honor you. Yes. When a superstar walks into your office, to steal a great movie quote, you had me at hello. I think you had everybody in this district at hello. We weren't exactly sure what you had us with, but it was certainly passion, drive, excellence, understanding of how to grow a more beautiful tomorrow. And you said it succinctly. You said what you had to offer. And this program is living proof that you knew what you were talking about, and you helped us get that hello. Let's please stand and thank Mr. Regan for his efforts. We have a lot of visitors heading in the door. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to keep on going. In terms of Mr. Regan coming to me and saying, could you please say a couple of words, it's hard beyond that to understand what to say to a group of people that are going to drive a really important conversation. I decided to go backward in the district history, and I gave mention of this earlier today at that shared decision-making meeting. So when I joined the district in 2012, on the first day, 2 days in, I gave a presentation to the staff to introduce myself, explaining what I was doing in Monticello. For those of you who do not know, I was principal of Roscoe, a teeny tiny, itty bitty little school district in the western side of the county. And although every single day there was something hard to do and a hard problem to face and tackle head on, I wasn't following what I needed to follow. And that was the belief that education equals opportunity, but ignorance equals oppression. And the only way to fix that is by leading systems that change the minds of the children who learn in them and the adults who lead that learning. And that's what I really wanted to do. In terms of going backwards to go forwards, where are we? We know that looking back over time, that the gaps associated with outcomes for students of color, have inappropriate gaps that need to be addressed. It is clear as day. When I walked in, I was interested in following a methodology that I truly agreed with. Today, as you walk through the work that we are going to collaborate around, there are going to be milestones that we hope to achieve as part of the Monticello Central School District. Milestone 1 is getting a healthy start and entering school ready to learn. 6 years ago, we started our Early Childhood Development Committee. We invite all child care providers in the community, as well as government entities, from Project C.L.A.S to Head Start, to talk to them about the curriculum choices and the equity choices that we need to take and make to extinguish the million-word gap for kids who live in poverty when they enter school. That was 6 years ago, based on education equals opportunity, ignorance equals oppression. Milestone 2, reading by the 3rd grade level, is all wrapped up in the fact that you have very little time to erase that million-word gap. If you do not do it by the 3rd grade, it will take you more than twice as long to fill in that gap, leaving children who are looking to us for a more beautiful tomorrow and to feed the seeds and water it and offer it good sunshine in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade before they even have an opportunity to hit a level of equity. Unacceptable. 3rd, 4th, and 5th, graduating from high school, ready for college and career, completing post-secondary education or training, and successfully entering the workforce equal Monticello's Life Ready initiative, now in its 4th year. We know that we want students to graduate. We know that we can't claim success unless students leave high school and immediately enter a 2-year, 4-year, or technical school, military service, or a livable wage job. If they don't have that leg up at 18 or 19, their ability to catch up when they are 25, 26, 27 is extraordinarily limited.
It is that time. It is now 4:30.
Yay!
It's time to go home. Enjoy this nice warm weather with the cold.
4:30.
Have a good day.
You too, whoever you are. That is our Life Ready initiative. We believe in it, but we need help. We need to continue to move that initiative forward. In the last milestone, that I just mentioned, successfully entering the workforce, I said to Michael earlier today, it says anyone who wants a job should be able to get a job. I said I would love a change of wording, just nominal. And that change is where I want to close up shop before I turn it back over. When we entered this
Mari Walker, if you're in the building, please come to the main office. Your ride is here. You're going home. Again, Mari Walker, please come to the main office.
When you look at the statistics 10 years ago, the cohort of 2004 for Monticello for the class of 2008 showed that our student population was made up of 22% Black or African American students, 20% Hispanic or Latino. If you were Black or African American, only 44% of you graduated. If you were Latino, only 55% of you graduated. If you were white, 73% of you graduated. From the New York State report card, available online. Class of 2018 for last year. If you were Black or African American, 84% of you graduated. If you were Latino, 86% of you graduated. And if you were white, 86% of you is ready. But I want to let you know that in that one level of honor, there is so much work left to be done. There is still a wide gap in the difference between advanced Regents diplomas being given out. Huge discrepancies in proficiency rates, 3 through 8. We need your help. We've called you here today because at a baseline, that's something to pat yourself on the back about, because that has not happened without the effort and hard work of the people in this room and in every classroom and the families within the community believing in our kids. And so that one word change that I ask you for, Mr. Regan, is this. Anyone who wants the job should be able to get a job that allows them to support themselves and their families. Should be changed to everybody should want a job. Because working and building and improving and innovating and inspiring to build a better, more beautiful tomorrow, to borrow the words from our former Apple CEO, for our children is the rent we pay for taking up time and space on earth. To do anything other than that is to operate against a moral code. That we have a direct responsibility to want more for the generation of tomorrow. It is what our parents did for us and their parents did for them. Thank you for coming. I know I didn't take the whole 15 minutes, but thank you for coming today and join us on this journey. I am pleased and honored to have you all here today. Mr. Regan.
Thank you. It's very exciting to see all of these people here today to support this work. I see so many people and so many dedicated individuals, organizations, community leaders, state leaders, students, young people all over here, dedicated. You took the time out of your schedule to come, and that says a lot about our community that really does support this work. And I want to take a moment once again to acknowledge the leaders in this room that really make this all possible. And everybody here makes this all possible, but in particular, there are some people who pay very close attention to this work, My Brother's Keeper, as it relates to Monticello. And first of all, Tammy Mangus, thank you. Tammy Mangus is the person who stepped up after Regent Finn called her and let her know there's a grant coming out called My Brother's Keeper. I want you to apply. And she stepped up within a matter of 2 days, wrote the grant, and now here we are. About a little over a year later, we've accomplished so much and so many great things. So thank you, Tammy. And I want to give a special, big, huge acknowledgement and thank you to Dana Taylor in the back there. Dana Taylor, yeah. Thank you, Dana. Dana Taylor is really the brains behind this operation. She works very hard, not just with My Brother's Keeper, but with so many other things that make great things happen for kids in our school district. But in regards to My Brother's Keeper, so many things we do are a result of her innovation and her passion and her compassion for our kids and our families. And it means a lot to have leadership who really stands behind the kids and the families, and I can always count on Dana to make the right choice for kids, even when it's not the most popular decision. Because sometimes what's right for kids isn't what's right for adults, unfortunately. But I can't thank you enough. You've inspired me so much, and you've inspired so many people, so thank you very much. And there are many other great leaders here, and we do have a lot of, I'm grateful to see a lot of administrative support here tonight. We have our principal, Stephen Wilder, so thank you, and thank you for your support and all you do for us. We're very grateful. And we have Ms. Blount, our assistant principal here, and yeah, a round of applause for Ms. Blount. We're just gonna give out applauses for about a minute. And we have Ms. Boardman here. We're grateful for Ms. Boardman. And we have Ms. Johnson-Fields in the back. Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Fields. And we have Lori Orsano-James, our board president. Thank you, Ms. Orsano-James. And we have Dr. DeFore over there. Dr. DeFore, superintendent of Sullivan County BOCES. Thank you. And I'm looking for more. Ed Lawson is here. Hey, Ed. Ed Lawson. He's going to be speaking tonight. You'll hear more from him. So thank you. I think you get the point. There's a lot of great leadership here. It does a lot of great work, makes this all possible, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you. We are going to talk about the need in our community because, again, My Brother's Keeper was brought to Monticello based on our unique needs here in regards to our levels of diversity. We have a very diverse population, all different kinds of people, and with that comes a need for equity. When you have diversity, it's very important for a community to have equal opportunities for everybody, to take advantage of all the resources we have to offer. There's so many organizations here, and we have our school people here, and we have so much to offer, so we're here to make sure that everybody can equally benefit from these opportunities. When we look at the milestones, 1 through 6, to summarize this, I'm going to make it pretty brief because afterwards, we're going to break out into work groups, and you're going to take a closer look at the data and where the gaps are and what we can do to address those gaps. And the goal of those work groups, this will happen after dinner, is to walk away with 5 to 7 action items based on the group consensus for each milestone that we're going to put in that action plan. Everybody should have an action plan right here, and we're going to add to this. This is just a draft so far, but this is based on feedback we've been collecting all year long from parents, students, community members, agencies, teachers, administrators. Ed Lawson here was a huge help with generating this, and this is just the beginning. This is not just a moment. Grants can often come and go, and sometimes people forget the work that was ever done. My Brother's Keeper, the reason we're here today is because, we have the grant, and we've been able to get a great start with that grant, but the grant is a moment, and My Brother's Keeper is a movement. So we're here today to support that movement and really get started. And once we do that, once we get done with this, we will finalize our action plan, we will submit it to State Ed, we will become officially registered along with over 250 other communities around the nation as a My Brother's Keeper community, all dedicated to these 6 milestones of improving outcomes for boys and young men of color. So it's a great honor. New York State, there's currently 23 registered communities. There's about 60 or so school districts that have the grant, but a community takes it to the next level because it calls people to action. It calls the community stakeholders, it calls the agencies, especially our young men and our young people and our families. It calls everyone to action to really make a difference and join together so that we can continue this work long after the grant is over. This is really something that we hope to see embedded into everyday practice within our community, within all different organizations, and that's why we're here today. So we're very grateful for that. I am going to share I'm going to touch on each milestone where the gaps are, and my part will be done because there will be more to focus on moving forward. And I do want to acknowledge this. So you see a lot of gaps. And in My Brother's Keeper, the goal is to move the needle for our boys and young men of color to bridge that gap just a little closer to the end with the ultimate goal of eliminating any gap. So let me tell you a little bit about the success we've had so far with our My Brother's Keeper program in Monticello School District. Last year, we launched our program in about January. And what we did was we gathered a group of young men and some young ladies who joined us too. And we poured love into them. We empowered them to take leadership roles. We really intentionally put a lot of effort into improving outcomes. And what we looked at was we looked at their baselines from the year prior, before they even knew about My Brother's Keeper. And we compared it to the growth they made last year. And what we found was we did indeed move the needle. And in every single outcome we measured, the needle was moved. Specifically, we saw a 15% improvement in attendance. We saw a 26% improvement in in-school suspension rates, meaning a decrease. We saw a 58% decrease in out-of-school suspensions, a 74% decrease in violent and disruptive incidents. We saw a 25% growth in the overall grade point average, measuring the gap and looking at how far closer they are to that gap. We saw a 66% improvement in their overall course passing rate. And as a whole, every single student who actively participated in our program throughout the year made progress in at least one of those areas, most of them and all of them. And as a group collectively, every single outcome measurement was improved. So we're very happy and proud to say that we do know we can improve outcomes for those in women of color. And we're just getting started. So last year, those numbers I mentioned, that was just on a small cohort of about 20 high school students. Now we have about 100 kids in grades K through 12 enrolled in MBK. So we're really excited about that. We have expanded our program. We have added different kinds of services. What I'm most proud of and excited about is our culturally responsive book club. We've just purchased enough books for our boys, our young boys, to read a new book that is written by culturally diverse authors from culturally diverse perspectives, with culturally diverse characters, and enough books for them to read a new one of those every day from the beginning of kindergarten to the end of 5th grade for their entire elementary career. I said every day, I meant once a week. But that's still good. It's exciting. So, it's a start. And we have our mentor program. We have our high school students coming down to the elementary kids, a cross-age mentoring program where they're making an impact on the younger boys. And eventually we hope that they'll become mentors themselves to create the cycle through rite of passage. So many other things, academic tutoring. We have a basketball which we use as an incentive to participate in the academic tutoring. And most excitingly, this is something that I'm very passionate about. It was inspired by the kids, particularly this young man right here, Noah Moreno. We have a recording studio, digital literacy lab, and we built this thing from the ground up. We hired a professional engineer. Where's Rudy at? Rudy's right over here. He's our new hire working in the studio. And we have state-of-the-art equipment, and we have state-of-the-art mentors working with our boys to help them express themselves and get their voices heard, empower them to use their creative, artistic side to basically engage the community and tell their stories and go out and feel empowered. And now we have that. So we offer that multiple days out of the week, and we're looking to expand it. And I think you get the idea. So I'm going to touch on some of these gaps. And when we look at milestone 1, which is come to school ready to learn, we measure this through Bergan's screening. And we're looking at their physical, academic, and language development. To summarize this, what you see here is our boys and young men of color are the most likely to come to school delayed in those areas. So they're the most likely to be delayed in those areas. And that is the case with every outcome, every milestone that we measure. So when we look at milestone 2, who's reading on grade level by the 3rd grade? About 40%. When we look at our boys and young men of color, 0% of our boys and young men of color are reading on grade level by 3rd grade, compared to about 40% of their white male counterparts. When we look at who's 2 levels behind, boys and young men of color are also the most likely to be 2 reading levels behind the 3rd grade. The 3rd grade is where reading becomes essential to learn. So you start to see that when you don't meet milestone 1, milestone 2 becomes a bit more difficult to reach. And when you don't meet milestone 2, milestone 3 also becomes a challenge, and that is graduating from high school. Thankfully, we have so many dedicated educators and leaders in this school that we have managed to really make a difference in this milestone. As you heard Ms. Mangan share earlier, I mean, just in 2014, our graduation rate was somewhere around 64%, 65%, 65%. And now, when we look at where are we right now, it's very exciting. Because in just 4 years, our overall graduation rate was 85%. And pretty equitable when we look at who's completing high school. Now, when we look at a little deeper as far as what kind of diplomas are they receiving, that's where we do see some gaps that we could address, and we could bridge those gaps as well. So we look at advanced Regents diplomas, which really is a good sign of a rigorous education. A lot of four-year universities want to see an advanced Regents diploma. And then we look at local diplomas, which means they didn't quite make the mark of a Regents diploma. They might have fell short a few Regents of the passing rate of 65. So boys and young men of color are more likely than anyone else to have a local diploma, and the least likely to have an advanced Regents diploma. And then we look at completing post-secondary education. We currently don't have a system to track how do our Monticello High School graduates fare in college and how many are completing. We're working on that, is my understanding. But what we do know is what their plans are. And what it shows is that our boys and young men of color are the least likely to have plans to attend a four-year university, but they are the most likely to have plans to attend a two-year university. And this is just looking at our baseline and determining how are we going to use this to determine where we want to go. So, when we look at college graduates by race, you can see Monticello has, this is our district boundaries, by the way. See, Wurtsboro, Forestburg, Rockville, Monticello, and Bethel. The most college graduates are in the red, which is Forestburg and Rockville. The least are in the center, in the lightest part of the map, which is Monticello. And when we look at who completed their degrees, again, it's a similar trend as far as geography. And what we know is that Monticello, the town, is mostly consisted of people of color. Their median household income in Monticello is about $26,000 compared to bordering neighborhoods and towns like Forestburg and Rock Hill with median household incomes well over 50, in some places as high as 80 or 90,000. So that's a significant economic disparity, and there is there's definitely something to take a look at. Where are the opportunities? Why? We should ask ourselves in all of these milestones, why are our boys and young men of color not reaching these milestones at the same rate as their counterparts? And when we look at who's successfully entering the workforce, our Black and Hispanic males are the most likely to be unemployed at about 3 times the rate of their white male counterparts. And in Monticello, there is the least amount of employed working age men compared to their neighboring towns within our district. This milestone here is my most, I guess I could say it's what I'm most passionate about. This is a lot of the work I do as a social worker in this school has to do with this milestone, which is keeping kids on track and giving them second chances. It's so important to make sure what we're doing, we know kids are gonna misbehave, and there has to be accountability, there has to be consequences, but we have to make sure that those consequences are actually effective at redirecting, extinguishing undesirable behaviors and promoting desirable ones. And what we know about throwing kids out of school is it often leads to poor outcomes in adulthood. There is direct correlations between suspension rates and incarceration rates later in adulthood. And sometimes it's been referred to, overuse of discipline has been referred to as the school to prison pipeline. And it's very important to look at the data and see how are we doing. Overall, I can say this, our suspension rates are significantly lower than they were 4 or 5 years ago, and they continue to decrease. But what we see is a trend in racial disparities when it comes to who's most likely to be suspended. So narrowing down our young men of color subgroup to our black males, they are the most likely to be suspended. About 40% of our black males last year have been suspended at least one time, which is about 2 times the rate of their white male counterparts. There is certainly an overrepresentation in discipline when it comes to our young men of color, and it needs to be addressed, and there are a number of great solutions to addressing these racial disparities and even overuse of discipline. And one of the best practices that's often recommended by professionals and researchers around the country and the world is restorative practices. And what that is helping students to actually own their mistakes, learn from them, reflect on them, and take accountability to repair that harm. So in restorative practices, we're asking who has been harmed, whose obligation is it to repair that harm, and what can be done to repair that harm. Restorative practices can be done in a number of ways, even at a preventative level, in the classroom, just building relationships using community building circles. It can be done in a peer mediation or conflict resolution way. When kids are getting themselves in conflict, we do this all the time. Ms. Blount can tell you, she's our AP in the high school. We do mediations almost every day, and we use it with circles. And we find it highly effective. I've done circles with all different kinds of kids and genders and races and problems and situations, and it works 99% of the time. There is that 1% where it blows up in your face. But most of the time it works great. I believe in it, and I didn't believe in it when I was trained, actually. I didn't think it would work with certain kids, and it just surprised me and shocked me how much it worked. So that is basically some of the ideas we've already put in the action plan, which is restorative practices, and there's many more. And we're grateful to see our law enforcement here, our state police are here to take part and give feedback in this milestone, because the milestone doesn't just talk about suspensions, it talks about ensuring that all youth are free and safe from violent crime. And it talks about second chances, and who better to offer insight than our law enforcement who deals with this on a daily basis, so we're grateful for that as well. Now that's all for me. I think I went on a little too long, but that's all right because we have plenty of time and we're about to get started on some work. So what you'll see in your pamphlets, I just want to address this, is you'll see a questionnaire. Throughout the rest of the day, continue to give us feedback using this. We're going to collect them at the end. On the back, there's a side for even more notes. So if, when we break out, you have some great ideas and you feel like you might not have gotten to share them, please write them down. We will look at every single page that we are provided, and we will use it to implement our action plan. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we do have Ed Lawson here. Ed Lawson is going to share a little bit about the work that he's done with My Brother's Keeper communities. So Ed Lawson has been instrumental in helping us establish our MBK community and MBK communities all across New York State. So I'm going to give it up for Ed Lawson.
So, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be with you. I'm really super excited about this work.